This is a Truth Transforms Truth Nugget, a daily dose of truth for your daily transformation. Welcome back to another Truth Nugget. Today we're going to talk about temptation, the importance of recognizing temptations that there are, looking to overcome temptation, and praying for God to protect us from temptation. I was reading a devotional here by Free Grace Broadcaster, and there's a sermon by John Owen in here. I'm going to read you a portion of that about temptation. First, we're going to go to the passage this is based on. This is based on Matthew 26:41. Watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation. Let's read those verses around it. This is Jesus saying to the disciples in the Garden of Gethsemane the night before his crucifixion. We'll start in verse 36. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." And taking with him Peter and two sons of Zebedee, he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch with me." And going a little farther, he fell on his face and prayed, saying, "My Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will." And he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray, that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." This is the portion that this devotional is based on, the one that I'm reading, and I'm going to share with you. Watch and pray that ye may not enter into temptation. We see that it's important to be alert. It's important to be prayerful. And those are the kind of things, as we're prayerful and seeking God and seeking the Spirit's empowerment, that's an important thing to keep us from temptation. And John Owen gave a definition of temptation in here, and I'm just going to read some of these closing thoughts from this sermon. I think it's from a sermon. From Temptation Resisted and Repulsed, abridged, so it's like a reprint of a portion of a sermon. "A temptation, then, in general, is anything that for any reason exerts a force or influence to seduce and draw the mind and heart of man from the obedience that God requires of him to any kind of sin. In particular, it is," I can read that definition again because that's helpful to sink in. "A temptation, then, in general, is anything that for any reason exerts a force or influence to seduce and draw the mind and heart of man from the obedience that God requires of him to any kind of sin." So really anything that would lead us to not walk in obedience to God. Anything that is not ultimately glorifying to God. Anything that would get in the way of our walking out obedience to the Lord. In particular, it is a temptation if it causes a man to sin, gives him opportunity to do so, or causes him to neglect his duty. Temptation may suggest evil to the heart or draw out the evil that is already there. It is also a temptation to a man if something is by any means able to distract him from his communion with God, or the consistent universal obedience that is required of him. How much does that strike us in this age of distraction? Distractions all around, everywhere you look, whether it be on social media, whether it be on YouTube, there's distractions everywhere. And there are always things there are always pressing things, good and bad, but things that are very pressing that need our attention. And these, we can still call them distractions. We must fulfill our responsibility, but anything that's keeping us from regular time in the Word of God, ultimately is a distraction. So we need to prioritize what is most important, handle the responsibilities that are absolutely necessary, but make sure that we're still staying in the Word of God and not letting that be neglected. All right, let's move on. To clarify, I am considering temptation not just as the active force of seduction to sin, but also the thing itself by which we are tempted. Whatever it is within us or without us that hinders us from duty or provides an occasion for sin should be considered temptation. It could be business, employment, the course of one's life, company, affections, nature, corrupt purposes, relations, delights, honor, reputation, esteem, position, abilities, gifts, etc., that provide the opportunity to sin or neglect duty. These are true temptations just as much as the most violent solicitations of Satan or allurements of the world. Whoever does not realize this is on the brink of ruin. Yeah, that's true. Anything that is out there that keeps us from our duty of communing with the Lord, spending time with the Lord, and walking in obedience to His Word, ultimately is sinful and is something that is a temptation, something that we can all fall into. We need to spend time with the Lord, and that is what will enrich us, delight us, and give us the food for our soul that we need. Well, I hope this was a blessing. Thanks for joining me for today's Truth Nugget, and I will see you in tomorrow's Truth Nugget. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's Truth Nugget, and I'd like to let you know about a resource to help with your devotional time. It's the Devotional Bible Study Guide, and it's a workbook to help guide you in your time with the Lord. There's room to journal. It's got prompting questions. You can find out more at preachingforgodsglory.org. There's a link in the description, and it's also available at Amazon. Be sure to look at the link below to find out more. God bless.